starts now.
Well, hey, happy Tuesday. Sometimes I get lost in what day it actually is, but I do know this, Drew. I know that it is the 1-year anniversary of Eric Musselman's arrival at Arkansas, his hiring at Arkansas, and what a year it has been.
Yeah, this is true, and it has been a great year, in my opinion. Obviously, you look at a 2012 season where, you know, obviously they could have won more games had Isaiah Joe been healthy. But he was not healthy during a stretch, and that really hurt them. Obviously played in just 26 of the 32 games. So that's one place we can start at in terms of Eric Musselman's first year on the Hill. Mason Jones, another guy we'll get to. But I think just overall, the charisma and the way he's been able to market this program and just what he does off the court with his wife Danielle, you know, being so great in terms of her relationships with people in the community. There's just so many things you could talk about that are positive about Eric Musselman and his family.
Yeah, absolutely. And you think about the start that they had after the season they had a year ago, that 11-0 start, and everyone was like, wait a minute, let's take notice. He came in with really the same guys that Mike Anderson had a year ago, really able to get them to buy into the system that he wanted, and you saw them play so well at the beginning of the season. Yeah,
no question about it, and I think it was just the fact that he came in and right away was like, look, we got to be a lot better in terms of locking down defensively. He always talks about the high hand, you know, and you saw that right away in some of those limited time frames in terms of practice periods for the Razorbacks where he was emphasizing more and more. He was saying, hey, look, guys, you know, it's got to be possession by possession. I think that's the difference you saw from 2018-19 to 2019-20 is how Arkansas was able to value possessions more so than it did in the 2018-19 season.
Yeah, you just remember that video of Hunter Yurchek walking into Eric Musselman's house in Reno, Nevada, and welcoming him to the family. And so, wow, to imagine that was just a year ago was crazy. Here are just some stats about Eric Musselman in his first year at Arkansas. The Hogs finished 2012, like you mentioned, Drew, 14-4 at home. Those home losses to Kentucky, South Carolina, Auburn, and Mississippi State. 4-8 on the road and 7-11 in the SEC, finishing 10th. But for a while there during league play, they were in really that top 5, 6, 7 pack until they lost Isaiah Joe, and of course that hurt them down the stretch.
Yeah, I think that was the thing we were all talking about here in the newsroom was, gosh, are they going to have to play on the first day of the SEC tournament? Of course, they had to play in that nightcap against Vanderbilt, but they got it done. Getting the 11th seed and having to play on the Wednesday, and obviously what was the first day of the tournament. And since it was actually modified, the SEC tournament 6-7 years ago, you know, this is the first time they actually had to play on that Wednesday. And so you feared that. But then again, the way they prepare, you knew they would be ready for Vandy, and they got it done against the Commodores.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of sad that the SEC tournament ended the way that it did. Of course, it's sad the NCAA just basketball season ended the way that it did, because I would have loved to see the kind of run that Arkansas and Eric Musselman could have done through the SEC tournament.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, obviously people were talking about the SEC this year, and it was down a bit compared to recent years, and so that was going to play a role in terms of bubble teams and who was going to get in. But like you said, you made the great point that Isaiah Joe was out for that 5-game stretch there, and obviously missed 6 games overall this season. That was huge because that 5-game stretch, it wasn't like they were getting blown out. I mean, clearly they played some good basketball and they lost back-to-back overtime games. And then you play some other good teams during that stretch, Tennessee, Mississippi State, and Florida. So that's a stretch where if you have Isaiah Joe, you would feel a lot better about, okay, 1 possession, 2 possessions, that was a difference in some of those games. And you'd feel good about having a guy like Isaiah Joe, which what bails you out? A 3-point shot.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I know that you've worked a lot on getting together kind of the best moments of the last 365 days with Eric Musselman, and you can't put together moments without putting together sound bites also that we heard from Eric over the past couple of
and we'll play that right now, Alyssa, because obviously it was hard for me going through his intro press conference to pick the best sound bites, but there were so many, and here's a look.
Arkansas tradition, you know, like, why is this job so appealing to so many coaches across the country? Just the tradition of this program is absolutely incredible. And I wake up at 3 in the morning, my wife asks if I'm going to the bathroom, and I'm like, no, I'm trying to figure out how we're going to get defensive rebound. One of the newer assistants, you know, grabbed me after the Texas Southern game and said, Coach, you might want to let them celebrate a little instead of bringing up South Dakota. But I also think that it's really important that our guys understand, you know, how much we respect. Let's start looking into the next opponent as quick as possible. We just got to get ready for SEC play, and we can't wait to see Bud Walton rocking on Saturday. Best one to consult with's my dog, because he just sits there and licks my hand. And you know, everything's cool with Swish. But he's the guy that I like to sit alone with and talk to about these type of things.
You gotta love Swish. I mean, you know, we heard that a lot in press conferences, the mentioning of Swish. And, you know, when you look at the way his family puts out there on social media, his dog, and Mariah is just such a terrific daughter of theirs, and obviously brings the charisma like Danielle and Eric do. And it's just great to see them do that, get out and engage with fans. But I think it really speaks to, you know, when you look back on that compilation of sound bites, the grind of a season as well, on a serious note, based on, okay, the trials and tribulations of going through the stretch. I mentioned Isaiah Joe being hurt there, January, February portion of the season, but you're able to rebound, and you saw also in that compilation how uplifting he is in terms of talking about the sellout crowds we saw at Bud Walton Arena this season.
Yeah, that was something that I think I'll take away the most. And I've covered basketball seasons here for the last 6-7 years, you as well. And it's going to stick in my mind, the crowds, that Tennessee crowd, the Kentucky crowd, how loud it was, because it's gotten loud in Bud Walton Arena. I was there when Michael Qualls put that back, the dunk against Kentucky a couple of years ago. It was loud then, but something about the way that Bud Walton felt with the sellouts every Saturday this year was just different for me.
Yeah, the LSU game as well, senior night. I mean, you saw those guys get honored, and that was great just to see the crowd react, and for them to, you know, put a exclamation point on the home stretch of the season, that is, and beat LSU and get that revenge after losing by 2 in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, that was pretty cool, and it's going to be exciting to see how that continues to grow as Eric Musselman continues his tenure here at Arkansas. And you mentioned social media. I mean, I don't know how many funny videos he's going to put out, how many, you know, spoof videos he's going to put out. I mean, the amount, he is about as creative on social media as he is with drawing up basketball plays and thinking with that basketball mind. It's pretty impressive.
I think it's a fair assessment. Absolutely. I mean, you know, whether it's the tennis team, you know, trying to get going again, and he's there at his desk, and, you know, he ducks, and then he gets up, and he hits the ball, you know, whatever. I mean, he just brings something different every day. And he's creative. He's thinking about that. I remember when he was at Nevada. I'm glad you brought that up, because he was at Nevada, and they were talking about marketing and social media, and they were talking about lockdown defense. And he's known for that. And so he came out with his guys when he was at Nevada, his coaching staff, and they had a chain. And they're just like, lockdown D. And, you know, he went up on a chalkboard, and the guy that was sitting there at the table had the chain going. They passed the chain around. I was like, I got to get the feel for the chain. You know, I got to get the feel for my lockdown defense and convey that to the players.
Yeah, our Tara Talmadge took some time and kind of went through all of the fun things that Muss has done, from those social media videos to hanging out with fraternity guys this season. We're going to take a look at that.
Eric Musselman gets it. He's more than just the head coach at Arkansas. He's a part of the community. Musselman has fully embraced the people of the natural state and all the traditions that come along with being a Razorback. Since stepping foot on campus 1 year ago today, Musselman has always been about connecting with fans. Videos on social media to stay in touch with everyone.
Section, let's get a selfie! Smile! Yeah!
Including the media.
Thanks, Tara. You're everywhere at all the events. Thanks, everybody. Bob, I'm sorry, man. That's enough. You've asked about 13 questions.
Most importantly, though, Eric Musselman has brought life back to the Arkansas basketball program. Reporting for the Pig Trail Nation, I'm Tara Talmadge.
For the record, I know most people know this, but Bob does ask about 13 questions at press conference.
He does.
It is a very accurate assessment of Bob Holt, but he's inquisitive and we love him.
Give or take a few, 13, 14, something like that. Yeah.
But it's very fun. We have Must-Bush t-shirts. I mean, there's so many things as we sit here and talk. It's like, oh yeah, there's this. Oh yeah, there's that. The culture that he's brought. His wife Danielle, who immediately jumped in, and obviously being a former television personality, not at all shy to get in the community and embrace it. Was definitely been able to volunteer and be a part of certain boards around the community because she wants to be involved, and Mariah wants to be involved. And I think that was something that some other head coaches here were lacking. And as Arkansas, as unique as it is, that's what fans want. Fans want to feel connected. They want to feel a part of your family and not just, your team, and I think that they immediately got that from day one.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say I'd have to 100% agree. And something Mike Irwin talked about last night during Ask Mike is what Eddie Sutton did one time. He said, Mike, put a mic on me. And that was after a loss to Rice. And he said, look, I want to tell these guys this is how much better we got to be defensively. And what did he do there? He took fans behind the curtain. He showed people what they're doing in practice to modify or revise, correct what they needed to do, what they needed to shore up from the previous game. And I think that's something you'll continue to see from Eric Musselman. You've seen the videos out there from practice that he continues to throw out there, and that's what I like about Muss as well.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up, by the way, because Mike Irwin's over here in the corner. I wish we had a mic cam so that anytime I refer to Mike Irwin, I could just take the mic cam. But he's doing exactly that. Right now he is writing up something to kind of compare Eddie Sutton and Eric Musselman and how similar they are in their coaching styles, but how similar they are with understanding their connection and the fans and what the fans wanted. And as much as you are a coach at Arkansas, you are also a coach for the fans, and they get it. So stay tuned for that.
Absolutely.
Mike's probably stole all his thunder, and he's mad at me.
We need to work on that. I mean, get that camera over there. It's going to be Mike's cam, corner cam. Mike's corner cam.
Anybody, it should be live fed all the time, and if anyone wants to just come, it should be muted though, and then you can just come in. You can see, not hear what Mike is doing every day.
It is a brilliant idea. And by the way, if you've got no, that's good stuff. Questions or comments. Defining moments, your favorite moments from the 2019-20 season under Eric Musselman. We want to know. Go to Facebook right now. Let us know. We're going to check our phones here. And we got one right here, actually, a question from Gene Dumont. Gene, the former Pig Trail Nation member, chiming in. What's up, Gene?
And it would be so basketball focused. That's so Gene. He's such a basketball dude.
Gene,
we know this.
But Gene asks, he wants to know, what's the scheme going to look like with this team in 2020-21 versus this past season? And it is a good question when you look at how they're going to be built now, because something that I alluded to time and again, and it had to be alluded to, is how undersized this team was this season. Worst team in the SEC in terms of rebounding, and we saw how they just got obliterated by nearly 30 rebounds, something to that effect against LSU on the road at LSU. That's just one example. But you're going to see a team that's bigger. You're going to see a team that perhaps could start, anywhere from 6'9" and above at 3 different spots of the 5 spots you can use for a starting lineup next season. That's going to be huge, the way they're just going to look different in that regard. One thing you'll see schematically, in addition to that, and let me talk offense for a minute, is something that Muss talked about a few weeks ago, and that is he's going through playlist sets. He's going through what Doug Moe used to do, and he's trying to draw from some of his mentors. Obviously, he's had great mentors in this business, Doc Rivers, Chuck Daly. But Doug Moe was a guy that ran a lot of sets where they weren't set plays, if you will. So he wants to know how they can work in this pace and space by doing that. And so how different are they going to look next season in that regard, particularly when they can put 3 bigs on the floor in addition to 2 guards.
Yeah, I think they're definitely just right there going to pass the eye test. Sometimes Arkansas got a little bit overlooked because of their size, and they had to kind of make up for that size, but obviously they were winning ball games and taking people by surprise because of their lack of size. But I think they're going to pass the eye test. You've got a guy like Connor Vanover, and I mean, we were talking to Eric Musselman on a teleconference a few weeks ago, and he's talking about how he's at home right now. His project for his coaches and stuff was to look at some pick and roll stuff for Connor Vanover and kind of get stuff. So he's in there looking right now at the next year. I know a lot of people are excited about next year. But what, to you as a question, what do you think Eric Musselman can accomplish in year 2? Because I feel like year 2 is going to be a lot harder than year 1.
Well, I think if you just look at the numbers, 20-12 this past season, they could have gotten to perhaps 22, maybe 23. I don't know. Obviously, that would have been an extremely tough stretch had the SEC tournament played out. But I felt good about that South Carolina game, that they would get revenge against South Carolina. That was a foul fest against the Gamecocks at Bud Walton Arena that they lost on the last possession against South Carolina. So if you can get to 21 wins, now you're looking at, okay, maybe you can get to 22. And now you look at this upcoming season, 2020-21, I think you're looking at a program that can get to 25 wins. And I'm not saying they could do it easily, clearly, because the SEC is a good league. But, how did he do it? How did they do it? how did they get to 20 wins knowing what the setup was this season, knowing that you had to go through the portal, you had to get guys that honestly you were bringing guys in just by looking at film. Some guys you didn't even really get a chance to talk to that much in person. You just had certain connections. You know, we know about Jimmy Witt's brother who was at Nevada. And so you had that connection. So you get Jimmy, one of the best defensive rebounders in the country, one of the best rebounding guards in the country, maybe the best rebounding point guard in the country. So they were able to strike gold there and bring Jimmy Witt back to Arkansas. That was big personnel-wise. But what else happened? They brought in Gene Tall-Silla. I love Gene Tall as a guy, great guy. But he just really wasn't what he was supposed to be at Arkansas. And so they faltered in that regard, but now you just have a lot more to work with. You're not as limited, and that's what I feel really good about because of the way you can interchange things, interchange your parts as far as your lineup rotations.
Well, I will tell you this, something that Muss says, he said it in his podcast with the Hog Pod, and he said it multiple times to us, is he will never be out prepared by another opponent. And that's one thing we're going to get from Eric Musselman, no matter what this team looks like, the makeup of teams year to year to year, their preparation and the work that they put in to prepare for each team is unprecedented and I think unmatched in college basketball.
Yeah, it's a good segue because I was just thinking about that South Dakota game, and after the South Dakota game, he talked about it. He said, you know, one of my newer assistants grabbed me and he said, hey, maybe, Coach, let them celebrate a little bit. And that was after they drilled Texas Southern. Johnny Jones, the guy that he obviously coached under at LSU. And they hammered Texas Southern. He's like, hey, can we kind of jump around, celebrate? And he's like, no.
Yeah, we got business to take care of.
We got South Dakota and Todd Lee coming in. Todd Lee, you know, a guy who's good friends with Eric Musselman. And Todd Lee is a good coach at South Dakota. And you were concerned about South Dakota's three-point shooting. Well, they won that game. South Dakota was pretty good late, but they had a good handle on that game. They won that one, and they just kept it rolling until they lost. As far as that unbeaten streak, they lost at Western Kentucky in overtime eventually.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, it has been a fun year one with Eric Musselman. I'm definitely looking forward to the future. We've got a lot of hope sports can get back next year, and I think everybody wants that. Yeah. I would love for baseball to come back, football to come back, basketball to come back. We all miss it. Gene said if you want a non-basketball question, well, how does Musk's kickball game compare to Mike Irwin's? You know, after this social distancing thing is over and we're past all of this, we'll get a kickball game situated.
Yeah.
If anything, Muss versus Irwin.
Yeah, how did I miss that question? That's a good feature story, though.
There you go.
Gene's
we'll file that one away.
That's how Gene's working. He's just trying enterprise stories. No, he's not working here anymore. He's still doing it.
From afar, from Memphis. He's working from afar. That's for us. All right. Well, again, really excited celebrating Eric Musselman all throughout the shows tonight. We've got much more at 6 and 9 and 10 coming up, so make sure to tune in for that. For Drew Ammon, I'm Melissa Orange. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks for watching this Pig Trail Nation report.